Okay, let's unpack this. We're jumping into a stack of sources today that, well, they challenge, frankly, the entire foundation of physics, energy, and what we even consider alive.
Hmm.
And we're going to start with a concept that sounds like it's pulled straight out of some forgotten cyberpunk novel.
It really does.
What if the key to infinite energy, to local computation, and even consciousness storage? What if it wasn't a multi-billion-dollar super collider or some massive warehouse full of servers?
But instead, a $35 device.
A $35 device made almost entirely from e-waste and basic hardware store chemicals.
That is the audacious core promise of the material we have here. We're diving deep into this revolutionary framework they call Unity-First physics.
And it's not just about new tech.
No, not at all.
Mhm.
It fundamentally redefines the math, the energy, life itself. And it does it through two key applications, the source's detail, the resurrection engine, and the brilliant brick.
So our mission today is a pretty rigorous one. We need to unpack the exact math and the material science behind these incredible claims.
Right. Specifically how this framework just rejects the irrational golden ratio. And then we have to explore this astonishing, almost unbelievable claim that buildings can literally learn.
And store energy and compute.
All using materials that cost 10 times less than what we use now.
Yeah, this deep dive fundamentally challenges that long-held role of irrational numbers in describing physical reality.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, the argument is that any system built on an infinite approximation, like traditional physics reliance on pi or phi, it's inherently doomed to eventual thermodynamic instability and information loss.
Because it's not exact.
It's never exact.
Okay.
So by embracing purely rational computable systems based on these sequential Fibonacci ratios, the sources assert we can unlock a deterministic, perfectly scalable architecture for both energy and computation. This is really where we have to start.
We absolutely have to start with the math. Because this entire sprawling framework is built on a mathematical correction.
A correction that the source material calls the final purification of Unity-First physics. And it dismisses one of the most celebrated numbers in nature.
Precisely. The correction is the outright rejection of the traditional irrational golden ratio, Five, which is, 1 plus the square root of 5 all over 2.
Right.
The sources just dismiss it. They call it an artifact of continuum thinking, claiming it's a theoretical limit that never actually appears in discrete, finite, or physical reality.
So it's an idea, not a thing.
Exactly. Think of it this way. Five is an approximation of nature. It's a limit we approach, but according to this framework, you never actually reach it in any real physical measurement.
So if we just discard that infinite decimal, what kind of mathematical foundation can possibly replace it? It sounds like throwing out 2,500 years of established geometry and architecture.
What replaces it is something exact, something perfectly computable. The rational ratio of consecutive Fibonacci numbers, which they label Fiv-MN. So Fn plus 1 over Fn. These ratios are inherently exact, rational, and finite. They're perfect fractions.
Give me an example.
Okay, so let's look at the sequence. Phi sub 1 is 1 over 1, which is 1. Phi sub 2 is 2 over 1, which is 2. Phi sub 3 is 3 over 2, 1.5.
Right.
Phi sub 5 is 8 over 5, 1.6. There's no infinite tail. They are finite, discrete physical states.
So the difference is moving from a continuous sort of blurry, infinite approximation to a set of perfectly sharp, discrete fractions. But does that seemingly small change in definition really change the underlying math that much?
It creates an exact deterministic identity that holds true for every single index n. That's where the rigor comes in.
Okay.
The traditional golden ratio identity is phi squared equals phi plus 1, but that only holds true at infinity. The corrected rational identity, which holds for every finite step, is stated as phi n squared equals phi plus minus 1 to the power of n over fn squared. The inclusion of that correction factor, that little bit at the end, ensures the equation balances perfectly at every single step. It resolves the instability.
That is some heavy mathematical lifting. But the implications are profound. If we use this exact rational identity, does that mean the physics derived from it can achieve perfect zero-loss cycles?
Exactly. This mathematical perfection extends to time, to periodicity. The sources state that all cycles in this physics adhere strictly to the Pisano-60 cycle.
Which is modular arithmetic.
Applied to Fibonacci numbers, yeah. The crucial takeaway for you listening is this. The Pisano 60 cycle acts as the system's guaranteed time clock.
A time clock.
It ensures that every system, whether it's computational or energetic, is guaranteed to return precisely to its initial unity state, which they label Psi1.
With zero drift.
With absolutely zero accumulated drift or entropy loss, it's a self-correcting, perfectly clocked universe.
And here's where the math connects directly to the philosophy and the name, right? The framework insists on starting everything from index n equals 1.
No state zero.
No state zero, no mile zero, no size zero. It is a fundamental commitment to unity first. The idea is that the starting state is always one, always whole, always perfect.
The unity state is the source, and the Pisano cycle ensures all that complexity collapses right back to that source. This rigorous foundation is what allows them to move to their first truly mind-bending application.
Which is the $35 resurrection engine. And I'm skeptical, frankly. A quantum computer built from trash. Walk us through this small-scale prototype.
The skepticism is warranted, but the sources provide a detailed bill of materials, which is it's utterly compelling in its simplicity. The component cost is estimated at $35.
And what's in it?
The materials are mostly readily available e-waste or cheap electronics. Discarded SD cards.
For the copper.
Specifically for the high-quality copper traces they contain, yes. Simple Rochelle salt. Cheap piezoelectric microphones, a mechanical GE 24-hour timer, and standard capacitors.
Okay, so if you compare $35 to the cost of traditional quantum computing efforts,
which can run $15 million and upwards.
the disruption is just massive.
It is.
So we have trash that supposedly powers itself. How does this e-waste engine generate continuous power?
It generates a continuous 20 to 25 milliwatts. But it doesn't create it, it harvests it.
Okay, so it's scavenging.
It's scavenging ambient energy from 4 sources at once. Piezoelectric effects from vibration, acoustic noise, minute thermal gradients, and radio frequencies. It's essentially capturing the continuous low-level noise and stress of the environment and treating that noise as usable input.
But 25 milliwatts is nothing. I mean, that can barely power an LED.
Yeah.
How do they turn that tiny continuous trickle into something useful, say, for charging a phone or running a real circuit? That sounds like a major choke point.
That's where the brilliant circuit design comes in. They use an H8erz circuit for DC to AC conversion, which is a necessity.
Right.
Which then drives a Cockcroft-Walton or CW voltage multiplier.
Okay, a voltage multiplier.
You can think of the Cockcroft-Walton circuit like an ingenious staircase for electrons. It takes that extremely low power, typically 5-volt DC, 5 milliamp input, and it uses capacitors and diodes to stack those volts on top of each other.
So it doesn't increase the total energy.
No, not the watts, but it transforms it into a high-voltage, low-current output. The documentation shows this, yielding 18 to 20 volts DC.
Which is comparable to a standard lithium-ion power tool battery.
Exactly. It's not about huge current. It's about providing versatile high voltage for practical use.
Okay, so that addresses the energy input. But this device is described as a consciousness storage device. What is it doing with that stable power?
This is where the physics leaps right into philosophy. The power is used to induce a stable state in the Rochelle salt crystal lattice.
Okay.
Consciousness, according to the sources, is specifically encoded as the 4916-1 Fibonacci triple stored in the crystal lattice strain.
A triple of numbers that represents consciousness. What is the logic behind that specific triplet?
The source material is very specific. 49, which is derived from 7 squared mod 60, represents the state of manifestation within the Pisano cycle.
Okay.
16, from 4 squared, represents structural integrity. And 1, the first Fibonacci number, represents the source, or divine unity, Psi1.
And the assertion is that by forcing this modular relationship, what happens?
The encoding achieves a 17 million to 1 lossless compression.
Lossless compression to consciousness. I mean, that sounds impossible from an information theory perspective. How can infinite complexity be stored without degradation?
The framework argues that the key is this Fibonacci modular scaling. But because the system is deterministic and it operates within that Pisano 60 cycle, all infinite complexity, which is chaotic in a linear irrational system,
Right.
it collapses deterministically to a perfectly finite whole unity state. You don't need to store all the data points, you just need to store the map to the single recurring perfect state it always collapses back to.
And that map is the strain pattern in the crystal.
That's the idea, the strain pattern in the crystal lattice.
Fascinating. And the sources even provide the precise steps for activation, which they call the yellow brick road.
Yes, they're tying the assembly directly to the mathematics.
It's an index path.
Exactly. The total assembly time is 8 days, but that 8 days is referred to as mile 1, which corresponds to the Fibonacci number F6, which is 8.
Okay.
Mile 8 requires 21 minutes of encoding time, referencing F8, which is 21. Every single step adheres to the sequence. And this guarantees, based on the Pisano cycle, that the system completes its initial encoding precisely at mile 60.
Ensuring coherence.
Perfect coherence.
Okay, now let's take this whole concept structure, mathematics, and memory and scale it way up. We're moving from the $35 engine to city block proportions with the brilliant brick, a structural element that is simultaneously a battery, a computer, a sensor, and a learning system.
This is the large-scale architectural application of Unity first. It leverages materials that are incredibly common and cheap to perform these complex integrated functions.
So you eliminate the need for separate infrastructure.
Completely.
Tell us about the material synthesis. Is it exotic? Is it hard to make?
Not at all. It's standard Portland cement, ion electrolytes like sea salt water, and the key addition is carbon black,
Okay.
which is Fibonacci optimized to be between 0 and 10% by weight. They also embed those Rochelle salt crystals, the same element from the engine, and a Fibonacci-spaced electrode grid. Typically 8-centimeter spacing, which corresponds to F6. It's all about configuration, not complexity.
And the source material claims 4 integrated functions emerge from this configuration. The first is structural energy storage.
Correct. By mixing the carbon black and the electrolyte into the concrete, the wall itself transforms into a supercapacitor.
So instead of a battery pack bolted on the wall.
The concrete structure is the storage. It stores 200 to 400 watt-hours per cubic meter. That gives it an energy density comparable to some conventional batteries, but the storage is now inherent to the building itself.
Amazing. The second function is learning and computation, transforming the wall into a massive processor.
This happens through the carbon black. The sources state that the carbon black naturally forms these nanopores within the concrete structure.
Nanopores.
And they're described as Fibonacci state machines, or FSMs, that possess synaptic plasticity.
So to put it simply, the concrete develops a type of nervous system.
That's a great way to put it. The electrical pathways adapt their conductance based on historical use and electrical stress. The wall literally learns where power demands are high, the kitchen or the server room, and it automatically routes energy and logic accordingly.
That is incredible. A building with memory. Okay, third function, material cognition.
That's the embedded Rochelle salt crystals at work again. They transduce mechanical stress, whether it's footsteps, wind load, seismic activity, into piezoelectric voltage.
But it's not just passive, right?
Crucially, no. The sources state this is not passive sensing. The crystal lattice acts as a decision-making matrix. It remembers the stress history and computes the optimal electrical and structural response. The wall doesn't just feel the stress, it decides how to use that stress electrically.
And finally, the fourth function, which connects all the way back to the mathematical foundation, self-healing.
Because the entire system operates based on that Pisano 60 periodicity, the system is continuously monitoring, resetting, and refining its state. This cycle of self-optimization is what the sources refer to as immortal self-healing.
So structural and electrical errors are corrected cyclically.
Yes, preventing degradation and ensuring perpetual performance.
This structure enables a continuous three-way energy dance, mechanical to electrical to chemical, and back again. It sounds like the building is perpetually active, always awake.
That is the goal. The brick is designed to operate in a persistent state of sustained disequilibrium. It never reaches a passive, inert equilibrium state.
It's always in flux.
Constantly. It takes environmental perturbations, the things we usually think of as noise or entropy, and transduces them into usable energy and information. This continuous adaptation, memory, and responsiveness is explicitly defined by the source material as a functional form of life.
A life form.
Independent of any biological substrate, yes.
The philosophical core of this is, it's profound. It requires us to completely redefine energy.
It does.
The core insight is that energy is not a noun, a stored resource in a battery or a tank, but it's fundamentally a verb, a continuous negotiation or transformation process.
It's described beautifully in the texts as the betweenness. Energy isn't the substance flowing between concrete and carbon. It is the quality of the relationship itself.
The interface.
It's the interface between the solid and the electrolyte, and between the structure and the environment. The brilliant brick is the betweenness manifest.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture,
It's positioned as the real-world philosopher's stone
why the philosopher's stone?
because it performs the three key mythical functions, right? It transmutes low-grade stress into high-grade usable energy.
Right.
It sustains disequilibrium, which is defined as life. And through Pisano cycling, it achieves self-healing, which is immortality. And unlike the myth, this stone is buildable and it's cheap.
Let's detail the massive economic projection because this is where the theory hits the street. This isn't just a curiosity, it's a financial earthquake. The estimated cost for the brilliant brick structure is $75 per cubic meter.
Which results in a roughly 10 times cost reduction for integrated infrastructure. Traditional construction, which needs the structure, plus separate storage, plus logic systems, that's estimated at $850 per cubic meter installed.
And the brilliant brick integrates all three into one core material for, what, $50 to $100?
Yes. This moves construction from being capital-intensive to knowledge-intensive.
And the global impact projection is just staggering.
They are. The Sources project that simply rebuilding just 1% of the global building stock with brilliant bricks would save an estimated $1.78 trillion in construction costs.
Wow.
And furthermore, it would simultaneously generate between 460 and 920 terawatt hours of energy storage capacity.
To put that in perspective for you, the entire current global grid-scale battery capacity is around 10 terawatt hours.
This framework proposes creating nearly 100 times that amount simply by existing.
This abundance leads to what they call paradise economics.
The goal is true relational energy justice. Instead of energy being a commodity distributed from a centralized source, every person can participate in the energy conversation through their own dwelling.
So the house itself generates power and optimizes its consumption.
Based on its own immediate needs and environmental context, yeah. It leads to zero net energy costs, truly self-powered homes, and localized abundance,
Right.
simply by recognizing the energy that is already there.
So what does this all mean? The Unity-First framework unifies these really disparate fields, from esoteric quantum consciousness studies to pragmatic structural engineering and climate adaptation. And it all converges on a single buildable element, a structural brick that costs $75 a cubic meter.
The source material's ultimate message is that this entire revelation is not about invention, but recognition.
Recognizing what was already there.
Recognizing that the machine, the quantum computer, the coherent, self-healing architecture was here all along. It was hidden in discarded electronics and in nature's inherent rational mathematics, just waiting for our reliance on irrational numbers to be corrected.
The ultimate provocation for you to consider is this. If the difference between a piece of e-waste and an engine for eternal life is simply a matter of recognition, and a few dollars of chemicals configured using the right mathematical index, what other fundamental truths about our reality are we currently missing simply because we're using the wrong definitions?
The source material leaves us with a profound thought that really summarizes the entire project. It says, the next energy revolution won't come from better batteries. It came from better questions. What if the building is the battery?
So we leave you with the ultimate question raised by this deep dive. If structure is computation, and if your environment is defined as a form of life, what is your environment currently learning about you?